The people asked, so we'll review. Today we're comparing the Endorphin Speed 5 with the Adidas Adizero Adios Evo SL. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Now today, like I said, we're comparing the Speed 5 with the Evo SL, but if it's your first time watching one of my reviews or comparisons, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this comparison, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back, watch the full thing when you get a sec, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while but you haven't hit the subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on those notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, before I get into the comparison here, a quick plug. I am running the Tokyo Marathon on March 1st, 2026. I entered through the charity route, and I actually have to make a payment to the charity at the end of this week. As such, I'm raising money for that, and so if you'd like to help me raise that money and are able and willing to donate, please consider using the donation link through the GoFundMe in the description below. But I'm also actually donating the revenue from this channel for June, July, and August, as well as any commissions that I generate through my affiliate links in the description below. So if you're in need of any running fuel, gels, electrolytes, anything like that, please consider using my affiliate link to Fuel Goods, as it will give me a kickback, which I will donate. Or if you've been looking at those Walco Distance Half Tights, which I love, and you want to get a discount, you can get 20% off, and I make a commission, which again will go towards charity. Now, with that out of the way, quick disclaimers and disclosures. I actually purchased both of these shoes with my own money. In fact, I think I paid aftermarket for the Evo SL because I was so curious about it. That being said, anytime I do receive a pair of shoes from a brand for the purpose of review, I'm not paid, I'm not given talk tracks, talking points. No one watches the videos beforehand, and all thoughts are entirely my own. Now, let's talk about the intended use of these two shoes. So the Endorphin Speed 5 is going to be a plated trainer, while the Evo SL is going to be a lightweight trainer. And there are some slight differences between those. Lightweight trainers are, for the most part, not going to have a plate in them and are going to be, you know, yeah, for short, fast speed work, but also going to kind of be able to be used for kind of daily runs or tempo runs, right? So they're going to be a little bit versatile, a little bit geared more towards speed than your standard daily trainer, but for the most part, you can use it daily if you like a lighter, more nimble shoe on foot. The plated trainers, though, are 100% dedicated for speed days, whether those are short and fast or kind of tempo and long run workouts. The speed, you know, I'm not sure where I would put the speed line entirely, because it has felt like it's kind of changed throughout the years. Like I felt like the 4 was a little bit more long run dedicated, where the 5 is, you know, I'll talk about it, but maybe a little bit more short interval dedicated. But for the most part, it's dedicated for faster running. So that's kind of how that fits. From a price standpoint, the Endorphin Speed 5 comes in at $175 and the Evo SL comes in at $150, right? Both of those are fairly good price points for their respective categories. Lightweight trainers tend to be $140 to $150. Plated trainers tend to be like $170 all the way up to $200 sometimes. From a specs perspective, the Endorphin Speed 5 comes in at 8.4 ounces, which is 238 grams. Meanwhile, the Evo SL comes in at 8.1 ounces, which is 230 grams. So slightly lighter between the two. Also pretty common because the plate tends to add a little extra weight. From a stack standpoint, you have 37 in the heel of both of the shoes, but in the Endorphin Speed 5, you have 29 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop versus 30.5 in the forefoot for a 6.5mm drop in the Evo SL. So Endorphin Speed going to be a little bit more aggressive drop, pushing you onto your toes a little bit more. And Evo SL going to be a little bit more, not flat, but a little lower drop, so allowing for a little bit more of a midfoot strike. From a fit perspective, I would say that the Evo SL is a standard overall fit. Some people have said it fits a little bit short. For me, I wear my normal size. I felt like it fit true to size, felt great that way. And I would say from a width perspective, standard toe box, you know, I would say actually a little bit roomy of a toe box. I think it's got a little extra space, kind of standard midfoot, standard heel. And then for the Endorphin Speed 5, I would say we're looking at true to size length. For me, the midfoot feels a little bit snug. I've heard some people surprised by that. They're saying it fits wider. I feel like it fits a little bit snug, but you know, I know that a lot of people had fit issues with the Endorphin Speed 4. So it kind of comes down to the person, but for me, I feel like it fits snug in the midfoot and then a standard overall toe box. And then I would almost say like a wide-ish heel, standard to wide heel for the most part. So yeah, so that's what we're looking at from a fit perspective. From an upper perspective, I'm just gonna say it's a no contest here with the uppers. The hexagonal mesh in the Endorphin Speed 5 is a phenomenal overall upper. It's very, very breathable. You have phenomenal lockdown. The cushioning in the heel and in the tongue is kind of a light to mid weight, but it's just enough padding to where it doesn't get you warm, but it still gives you some really nice comfort, some really nice cushion there and protection. And then it does have a fully gusseted tongue, which is huge because especially when you're running fast, you want everything locked down really well. So for me, the Endorphin Speed 5 has really, really good lockdown. It's very, very breathable. The upper is a big upgrade for this shoe, and I really, really like how it fits for the most part. The heel flare, nice touch. I feel like a lot of shoes and models are going towards that just to reduce any rubbing of the Achilles and heel area. You know, for me, I didn't have to use a runner's knot, but I think I probably could. I did have a little bit of heel slippage occasionally in the shoe, but nothing that was super frustrating or noticeable. And then, yeah, just lockdown really, really good. But the upper itself, structured, yet breathable, lightweight. It's very nice. The Evo SL upper, it is the weak point of the shoe. You know, I do think it's very comfortable, but for a shoe where you're running fast, like for one, the tongue is kind of short. Two, it's not gusseted, right? So it does struggle a little bit with lockdown. You do have to cinch down pretty tight there to make sure you get your fit. But as far as breathability throughout the rest of the upper, I think it's really, really nice, right? I think it's a valid knock to say like the laces and tongue are just not great. But from a structure, breathability, comfort, lightweight fit, you have a nice padded heel there, right? The heel feels nice locked down in place, right? I don't think the upper is as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. I just think that people love the Evo SL, including myself. People love it so much that those who didn't like it have to hate on it extra in order to kind of counterbalance all the love that the shoe is getting. So I get it. The upper is not the best part of the shoe, but it is still very, very comfortable. Moving to the midsoles, right? This is where the biggest difference is for me in the shoes. Now you have Power Run PB in the Endorphin Speed 5. That is a PIBA-based foam, right? And then you have a nylon plate in the shoe, which is not going to be the most rigid, right? So you can see you can still bend the shoe, but you're gonna get a little bit more snap, a little bit more pop, right? It's a little bit more aggressive of an overall geometry in the Endorphin Speed 5, right? It does kind of push you onto your toes a little bit. On the Evo SL, you have the Light Strike Pro Foam, and that is going to be, I believe it is TPEE. Yeah, it's a TPEE foam, and you do actually have a small nylon shank that fits kind of there. So to call this completely unplated would maybe not be true, but for the most part, it's not a full length plate. It's just to give it a little bit of structure, a little bit of stability. The foam is not quite as squishy. It feels a little bit more dense, yet kind of airy compared to the Power Run PB. So Power Run PB, it's going to be that soft, squishy, it's gonna bounce, it's gonna be responsive. The Evo SL, it doesn't really pop off the ground for me. It's really more of a smooth overall transition, but the energy return is really, really nice. As far as these two shoes, from a stability perspective, I think I give it to the Endorphin Speed 5. From a comfort underfoot perspective, I think I very much give it to the Evo SL. The plate of the Endorphin Speed 5 does something weird there kind of in the heel. You can kind of feel it a little bit. They went with a new design of a plate, and so for me, it just doesn't quite work how I would like it. But you don't really feel it at faster paces as much. It's more so when you're in that kind of tempo area where it's most noticeable for the Endorphin Speed 5. But yeah, the two sensations, I would say that the Endorphin Speed 5 is pop. It's a little bit more pop off the ground. It's a nice toe spring. The Evo SL is going to be a little bit more smooth. Now, because there is no real plate element in the Evo SL, you can go really, really easy in the shoe. And I think it's best suited kind of as a standard running, tempo run, easy day, long run, right? Even long run workout. I've had some of my best long run workouts in the shoe. The only place where it doesn't really shine is, I would say, short and fast intervals, but even then it's capable of those. That's where I feel like the Endorphin Speed 5 does a little bit better. You know, I did kind of some threshold workouts in the shoe and I didn't love it. I did long runs in the shoe, I didn't love it. But when I did some 400-meter repeats, that's where I felt like I was feeling the pop, I was feeling the energy return, I was feeling, you know, the aggressiveness of the shoe, and that was really, really nice. So I think that you could use these in a rotation together. I think you could use these to complement each other, but I do think that the Evo SL is going to be a lot more versatile actually, and at $150 compared to $175, that's a tough argument to make, right? So anyway, I prefer the feel underfoot of the Evo SL, but I do think that the Power Run PB and nylon plate setup in the Endorphin Speed 5 is nice. Now, moving to the outsoles, Saucony, you have the XT9000 rubber, or 900 rubber, excuse me, in a new overall pattern and geometry on the outsole of the Speed 5. You know, I've run in some weather, some kind of wet terrain, wet roads, some, you know, slightly wet, damp trails, and the grip on the shoe held up really, really nicely. I will say though that only about 30 something miles in, and you're getting some decent wear and tear there on the lateral side of the shoe. So I don't love that. I don't love the durability of the shoe in that aspect. So something to think about there. I wonder how long that outsole is going to last. Now for the Evo SL, that Continental rubber on bottom. Continental rubber is actually supposed to be really, really grippy. It's been great on other shoes. With the Evo SL, it can be a little bit slick at times. So kind of, I haven't had any major issues with the shoe. You know, I think I have like 60 to 70 miles on these shoes. They seem to be holding up a little bit better than the Endorphin Speed 5. So durability wise, I think they're going to last a little bit longer, but I do think that the Endorphin Speed 5 outsole grips the road a little bit better. So if you do live somewhere where the roads are going to be a little bit wet, something to consider. Now, as far as my pick between the two, the Evo SL is my #1 shoe of 2025 still. No shoe has beat it out in that category. And the Endorphin Speed 5, I do think is a good shoe, but I don't feel like we've gotten a ton of innovation in the Endorphin Speed line. So for that reason, I'm hesitant to rank it super, super highly, even in the plated trainer category. Now, I haven't tried a ton of plated trainers this year, right? Most of them are fall releases, so we'll start to get those releasing here in the next few months. I'll be curious to see kind of how this stacks up against the competition, but it's a good shoe. $150 for the Evo SL, though, is one of the best deals, if not the best deal on the market. So I'm going Evo SL. Ultimately, I do think that the usage, though, in these two shoes is just different enough that it's hard to compare them, but wanted to kind of give the answer as some people were requesting this specific comparison. So just some final thoughts. Speed day shoes, for the most part, they're a lot of fun. They're responsive. They're bouncy. To be honest, I think that the lightweight trainer market is going away a little bit as daily trainers are becoming more responsive. There are a lot of premium techs going into daily trainers, so those categories are kind of merging. And speaking of, the plated trainer category is kind of becoming obsolete as well in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people are using their racing shoes, like old racing shoes, for speed work, because $175 is not terrible for this market, but when compared to, you know, the fact that you can get last year's super shoes at like $200 or $190, honestly, those are going to be better for faster and more versatile work. So plated trainer, I think there needs to be a little bit of innovation, maybe a price adjustment. It'll depend. I know super shoes are getting more and more expensive, but both of these categories are getting pretty murky because of that. You know, we'll kind of see what happens there. But overall, Evo SL, phenomenal shoe. Endorphin Speed 5, really good shoe. If you watched this far, I sure appreciate it. Let me know what questions you have in the comments, or what other comparisons you'd like to see, or what I could be doing better to make these videos more entertaining, educational, just overall better for each and every one of you. Again, quick plug, if you are able and willing to donate, please consider using the GoFundMe link in the description below. And if you've been a viewer for a while, or you watched this far but you haven't yet hit the subscribe button, please consider doing so today, as it goes a long way in helping me continue to build this channel. Lastly, I'll finish with a question, which is, what do you typically use on your speed workout days? Do you like lightweight trainers, plated trainers, old super shoes, new super shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.